What is up, martial arts fanatics? Welcome back. I'm Coach Greg. Today we're doing a Q&A. As always, if you have your own question you'd like to see me put a video on, make sure you go to the link in the description below, put up your question, and I'll try to answer it in a future video. So today we're going to answer the question about what do you think about blitzing? This is something that came up during the Benil Dariush video. I was talking about how one of the problems that Benil Dariush has is sometimes he's gotten into trouble punching with his head high, right? Got him in trouble with Charles Alvarez, got him in trouble in the past, but he's also had a lot of success with it, right? Blitzing can be very high reward. You still see it a lot in women's MMA where the reward is still very high, but the risk is a little bit less. There's less likelihood of getting knocked out, even if you throw and have your head up and whatnot. And so a lot of grapplers who are not very skilled at striking will just blitz their way into a clinch and then take somebody down. So here's my thoughts on blitzing. I think it's a very valuable tactic. I think it is often used incorrectly. There's two things that in my mind define when to use a blitz. One is timing, and two is tactics, right? I have to be looking to achieve something. But in both cases, I have to have good built-in defenses when I do it. I can never blitz like this, right? Whenever I blitz, it's gotta be head down, like really, bah, bah, bah. This is how I blitz, with my head down, very aggressive pace. All we're doing is the same type of forward progressing attacks that we would do here, stepping with our punches, but now we're doing it at a faster, more aggressive pace. It's really all we're doing. Blitzing works really well if you have a point style background and you're familiar with how to blitz safely. The thing that I would say this, if you're gonna do blitzing, do a lot of point fighting blitzing first, because that'll teach you how to not get caught when you blitz. Because point fighting is all about that entry, explosive entry, and not getting caught. If you can blitz and not get caught, you're doing okay. You'll be fine. A lot of guys, they just start swinging. And I think sometimes they're doing it because maybe they're loose and they want to land on a guy, they want to put pressure. And there is a good side to it when you do that. Like, you do have a chance of just overwhelming people. People, even at the highest level, everybody responds to volume and pressure. You can't do it indefinitely. And at the highest level, you can't only rely on that. But if you bust it out once in a while, it can really pay off. The thing I would recommend is to pick your moment when you do it. I usually only do it after I've slowed things down, right? I wouldn't do it in a self-defense situation, because in a self-defense situation, I'm not trying to stay in the pocket and bang with the guy. My goal, I've talked about this in the main fight system, is to stay on the outside. If he's close enough to punch, he's close enough to take down, okay? So from the outside, I would much rather pick him apart and make him swing and miss and get tired and land my clean shots. That's always my goal. I don't want to stay and trade with a guy in a rock'em sock'em. Even in a rock'em sock'em, if I am forced to do it, I'm going to do it using the right tactics, forcing them to make mistakes, right? Forcing them to miss, forcing them to hit my hands, keeping my base wide, using the right tactics in that situation so that I don't get set flying. So same thing in a blitz. I'm going to use the same kind of tactics, but the difference is I'm going to use it, but I'm only going to use it after I've slowed down the pace. There's times in a fight where, you know, most of the time when I spar, especially as an older guy, I like to get my opponents a little bit lower tempo. My goal is to stuff them from the outside, frustrate them, make myself hard to access, make them expend energy, slow them down, and pick them apart. Play a smarter game, not a more aggressive game. But if I get somebody who's aggressive, my goal is to slow them down. So what happens a lot of times is when I'm sparring or I'm going for long extended periods, people start to slow down. They start playing this game of like trying to figure me out. Like, where's my opening, right? How do I get this guy? That's the moment you blitz, right? When I have slowed down the pace and I've gotten them to the point where they're playing this slow, relaxed game and they've forgotten about my ability to suddenly charge them, that's the time to do it, right? It's the same thing like leg kicks. I don't leg kick if I know that they're expecting a leg kick. I do it when I made them forget that leg kicks exist. So when I blitz, I do it infrequently. You know, I've done my work to set them up, playing around, and when they're settled down, thinking about their entry, that's when I go out. A couple things I like to do when I blitz. One, always make sure my head is down, throwing good shots. I'm taking advancing full steps because we're bipedal mammals, we cover more distance that way. I will sometimes alternate in the occasional sliding step towards the end of it so I can cut an outside angle. And a lot of times I like to punctuate it with a chasing roundhouse kick, that high roundhouse kick at the end. Because as they start running this way to run away from me, I'll catch them with the high roundhouse kick. That is frequently how I land on people. Very similar to how we talk about like Robert Whitaker, how he steps like so. Similar, but I'm getting him running away from me to my left to avoid my power hand, and I let him catch my high left kick. But really the timing is the most important part of this, is standing outside, making them forget that I can suddenly decide to change tactics and overwhelm them with volume and power. Certainly this tactic also works if I want to put them up against the cage. Whatever your goal is, whether I'm using it to set up a proactive shot, whether I'm using it to land a big kick, whatever it is, the main reason I'm using it is because my opponent's getting comfortable. You know, I like to put my opponents that they never feel comfortable. So once I get them to the point where I've slowed down things and I've picked them apart and I'm getting this nice tactical game that I want, and I start to play my combination groupings and all that stuff, and I start to set him up for my counters, now I've slowed things down. And now he's being a little bit smarter in how he approaches because I've been more technical than him. Now's the time to make him regret slowing down so that he never settles in and gets comfortable. Now he's got to be on his toes again because he's not sure when this is going to happen. That's kind of my answer to that. So blitzing, I think, is a very invaluable tool. There's a lot of payoff for it, but I do think a lot of guys either overuse it or use it at the wrong time. I have seen a lot of success. You know, we talk about Benil Dariush. When he gets backed up and he feels like he's in danger, he turns it up on him, right? That's a great time to do it. Personally, when I get backed up, especially if I get backed up to the wall, I prefer to use that to roll under to shoot. I find that's a much bigger threat from there. I find I've got more value out of it. But you can certainly do other tactics as well. But yeah, if you get clipped, instead of just standing there going, right? Yeah, throw it back at them, right? Take a chance, because a lot of times people aren't going to win. They're not going to be willing to get knocked out themselves to try to get the finish. If they're a good fighter, they'll disengage and then pick their moment again. So sometimes it's a nice way of backing them off when you're in a bad position. But overall, yeah, I mean, I do think blitzing is valuable. I just think that a lot of times, if you're doing this, you need to train blitzing into your system. So you do need to practice it to suddenly be in here, right? You need to practice that type of an attack. Okay, so that's my thoughts on that, and make sure you share with your friends, guys.